Hello, it's Scott Manley here. It's time for another set of Deep Space updates. It is March 20th, which means that spring is here. We're passing through the spring equinox. The sun is moving from the southern hemisphere into the northern hemisphere. Yeah, that's always a big deal, but it happens pretty much on the same time all the time. Yeah, I haven't put out as many videos as I'd like because I've been sort of knee-deep in pilot learning stuff. I did want to show you people this. This is a 1942 aerial dead reckoning computer. It's basically a fancy slide rule. You can do like a velocity vector calculations on the back and your unit conversions and multiplications. Yeah, 1942, that's what they had, and I still know how to use it. It's beautiful, and I love it. But yes, lots of space stuff going on, obviously. And as usual, we're going to start with the launches. And in the last couple of weeks, I guess the first launch on the calendar since the last time was Astra Rocket 3.3 launch number 9, which successfully launched from Kodiak after their unfortunate failure when they were launching from Florida. Yeah, so this was a rideshare mission, a return to flight mission. It was organized by Spaceflight Inc. and I think had 3 customers on board. There was ORSAT 0, whatever, from Portland State University. There was a primary payload called iStar S4, which was supposed to remain attached to the second stage. And there was also 20 Space B microsatellites for Swarm Technologies. So yeah, there was a bit of a blip during the go poll where it was a fine, I'll wait for you until you're ready. Yeah, I don't know, there was some real sort of passive-aggressive aggro there. But look, that doesn't matter, because the flight got off the ground and it proceeded to space and it got to orbit, and then there was some concern that they couldn't, fully guarantee that the payloads had separated. And that was sort of tense, but it was also sort of understandable because, of course, they were headed out in this, heading south across the day-night terminator, and beyond the range of their ground stations. And it wasn't until they picked them up again that they were able to confirm that payloads had indeed separated. So that's a successful return to flight. It's also noticed that Ben Brockert pointed out that they launched this, or they flew this up to Alaska on a C-130 via air. No, the Astra Rocket's designed to fit in shipping containers so it can be moved around to the launch sites. And they obviously paid a bit of a premium to fly it on there, but it's not clear whether this was to, rush through a launch success before their earnings call. There was like some serious stock dumping going on when there was some uncertainty regarding whether the payloads had separated or not. The price went on a pretty wild ride. Anyway, moving onwards, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, there was a Long March 4C launching a Yaogan optical Earth observation reconnaissance satellite. It launched it into a 63-degree orbit, and we don't really know very much else about it. 18th of March, though, that was the launch that everyone was really interested in because that was Soyuz MS21. This was a launch from Kazakhstan of 3 Russian cosmonauts, Oleg Artemyev, Denis Matveev, and Sergei Korsakov. And yeah, they were going to the International Space Station, the first spacecraft to dock onto the newly installed Prishal module. And yeah, it was fascinating in the middle of everything else that's going on, NASA was carrying the live stream of the launch, and it was totally business as usual. We are friends, which is, of course, what we would like to be in this world, except for the whole, that thing. But yeah, they docked successfully. Obviously, Soyuz is a very reliable rocket and spacecraft, and when the crew came on board, they were conspicuously wearing some very yellow and blue jumpsuits. And of course, many people are saying, wait a second, aren't those the colors of Ukraine? And when asked about it, Oleg basically said, well, we had a lot of yellow fabric. A Roscosmos official response is that these are the colors of the Bauman Moscow State Technical University that all 3 cosmonauts went to. And I'm surprised that Oleg didn't say that. I mean, look, obviously, Many people are saying that, look, this shows the cosmonauts are smart people. They're international. They are on everybody's side. They understand what is going on in the world, and that may be the case. But these jumpsuits, these flight suits, they have to be prepared months in advance. So there would have been a lot of people knowing what these were. And I'm kind of surprised, I guess I'm sort of pleasantly surprised that nobody decided to pull these off and replace them with something else. I mean, of course, the colors of the Russian flag are red, white, and blue, and that's, no American's going to look at that and say, oh, yes, supporting red, white, and blue. Yeah, anyway, look. Everything's good. We obviously have Mark Vande Hey, who is going to be returning next week or so. Now, despite any claims to the contrary, he's totally going to be flying on a Soyuz. He's almost certainly going to be landing in Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is not Russia. Sure, they will have Russian personnel supporting the pickup, but I'm sure they will be very professional. And I'm sure that Mark will be recovered and put on a flight, back home, which will notably avoid, going through Russian airspace. I'm sure that's what will happen. I don't think it's a big deal. Mark will actually set a record for the most amount of time spent on a single flight by a US astronaut, even beating out Scott Kelly, who, of course, we've been talking a lot about him recently. Anyway, moving onwards, finally, there was a launch on the 19th. It was another Starlink launch from Florida, 53 satellites, and it marked the return to the northerly launch azimuth as the temperature and weather has been improving. But also, it marked the 12th flight of a booster. So this is a booster that's flown more than anything else. That's a dozen. Good job on that. Also, it was apparently the heaviest payload ever lifted by a Falcon 9, 16.25 tons. So Starlink satellites have got heavier. And remember, the early ones were 60 satellites and about 15 tons, about 250 kilograms each. So the mass of these Starlink satellites has obviously increased as technology and hardware such as the laser interconnects have been applied or added. But the really, really big news of the week has been two very big rockets getting shown off once again. Yes, the long-awaited rollout of SLS, again on St. Patrick's Day. Yes, this was a St. Patrick's Day parade without nearly as much green and a whole lot of orange. Anyway, yes, the giant orange rocket rolling out across the Kennedy towards pad 39B. Yeah, it was really quite marvelous to see from all these angles. The boosters on the side, the new 5-segment boosters with they put the NASA worm logo on the side, and I find that fascinating because the worm logo was NASA's logo up until like 1992, right? There was a period where they went all 1980s style, and the worm logo was the thing. That's what I grew up with. Some of those segments on that booster are steel rings which date to the 1980s. I think the oldest one first launched in 1990. So these are some of the oldest parts on that rocket there. You got to understand SLS, as well as being designed with hardware derived from the shuttle, it's literally using materials that were used on the shuttle. The 4 engines are, of course, the 4 main engines. The boosters are using existing booster segments, and they will be replaced over time. And of course, the AJ-10 engine in the Orion service module on the upper stage also came from a space shuttle. But yes, got to see this rolling out. It was very slow and very cool, and I love the photo of the NASA the NASA person, whatever, that was standing next to the massive orange rocket, holding up a banana for scale. Yes, truly a meme which has legs. And yeah, around about the same time, Starship was stacked. Again, Starship Booster 4, Starship 20 were stacked once again with a chopstick. So this was also, by the way, in the last week or so, SpaceX's 20th anniversary, and they put out a nice little retrospective of the wild ride they've been on. So the stacking, this was the third time they've stacked Starship. This time they again used the chopsticks. They didn't need to have the claw to help align the things anymore. It went much faster, got together. They also locked in the umbilical, which we haven't seen working previously. And with all that working, they cleared the test site and did a full cryo test of the whole stack. So we saw frosting on all of the tanks. We saw a whole lot of venting. This was a very cool and active rocket. So yeah, I mean, previously when they stacked this, the first time was like, August, I think, last year, and they just used a giant, Franken crane to lift the Starship up and stack it on top, and they got some nice photos, and then they took it apart and then spent months trying to fix that heat shield and finish building the launch tower. Then, of course, for Elon's presentation about Starship, that was the next time, and they lifted it up. It was much more slow, much more careful, and yeah, they needed the claw to align it. So they're getting better with each step, and at some point this thing will maybe fly off the pad, or maybe Booster 4 will be replaced by something else. Who knows? And yes, what else? Oh yes, of course, JWST finally delivers the first image, right? The first proper image. The mirrors have been aligned. They have got it, diffraction limited optics, and they were able to take this test image showing the diffraction spikes and a whole bunch of galaxies in the background. So they're still commissioning the spacecraft. They still have to wait for some of the instruments to cool down and to get, reach their noise floor, but they're able to start using it to test stuff. And this was an image that they released. So the cool thing, I guess, is comparing this against previous space telescopes. And this is like a 6-meter mirror. And if you look at Spitzer, for example, I think there's an image which shows the galaxies are a whole lot less defined. And then, of course, you can compare it against WISE, but that's a wide field with a 40-centimeter telescope. Yeah, this is a great step. It's wonderful to see this, and I really hope we start to see more data going forward. But it's great that this is now fully aligned. On the International Space Station spacewalks, Kayla Barron and Raja Chari, that was his first spacewalk, and Kayla's second. They were basically going out to put in struts and brackets to support the next set of iROSA, rollout solar arrays, which are going to be expanding the power capabilities of the International Space Station. And this was pretty easy job. It went well, and they actually finished ahead of schedule, and they were able to go off and do some other supporting tasks that were bonus tasks. They were there for bonus points. So yeah, that worked well, and Raja Chari and Matthias Maurer will be out next week on another EVA. They're all getting their EVA experience. But speaking of future space stations, Sierra Space has signed a deal with Mitsubishi Heavy Industries to work on orbital reef components. So Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, you might not think of them as a space contractor, but they built the Kibo module for the International Space Station, and they also worked on the HTV, the Japanese cargo ferry vehicle. Sierra, by the way, is also in parallel, completely unrelated, working with Japanese partners to land Dream Chaser, or provide the option of landing Dream Chaser at certain runways in Japan, which could be, it could offer new capabilities. And yeah, for the space, by the way, they have delayed Axiom just a little. So Axiom 1 is still going to fly very, very soon. And that means that the next crew flight, I think, is now on the 19th of April. This is SpaceX Crew 4 now? Yeah, Crew 4 is going to fly towards the end of April, bringing up a new crew. Yeah, what else? Oh yes, Mars, by the way, they've also confirmed that Ingenuity is going to have its service extended out until September. So Ingenuity originally was going to go for 3 flights. It has proven to be exceptionally reliable. They've solved a number of technical issues, and they've made like 21 flights now. they're continuing to work on software updates. Like the latest updates apparently allow them more flexibility in their motion. They're going to be able to fly higher, and it would be really cool to see much wider fields of view from this camera. But it's going to proceed and continue to work with Perseverance until at least September, or it breaks down. But that is fabulous news. Perseverance, of course, continues its slow drive, but its slow drive is still way faster than what once was possible. Yes. So Blue Origin were preparing another flight of their New Shepard 20, which was going to have 5 paying customers and celebrity guest Pete Davidson, who has, is not going to fly anymore. I'm not sure why. It's not really clear if this was driven by his choice or driven by Blue Origin's choice. I mean, he's kind of wild and wacky, and I wouldn't be surprised if someone decided that wasn't going to work. I mean, Pete Davidson is everywhere right now, and he's cool, but yeah, he was going to go to space. But yeah, the rest of the passengers are all paying customers. Maybe they'll replace them with another paying customer, and we'll have 4 actual paying customers. One of the paying customers, I think, is what's his name? Now I gotta look. I gotta look at my notes here. Where is it? Yeah, one of the paying customers I saw was a guy called Jim Kitchen, who basically says he's been to 193 countries, basically every country recognized by the UN. And he's got nowhere left to go but space. Hey, goals, I love it. But yes, coming back finally to Earth, we can't go another week without, we can't go by this indeterminate time period without continuing to talk about the Russia-Ukraine situation. And I should apologize for the previous episode where I accidentally confused Mark Kelly and Scott Kelly. Scott Kelly is the ex-astronaut who was baiting Dmitry Rogozin on Twitter. Mark Kelly is a senator who was also an astronaut who is doing the more respectful job of calling Putin a war criminal. I mean, look, to be fair, they are twins. But yeah, I mean, Dmitry has continued his performance art, trying to look cool for his buddy Vladimir. He's made some completely insubstantiated claims about, how much this is costing Western companies, $4 billion. What? Russia is costing the West $2 billion by not selling them rocket engines. I'm not sure that's the case. But yeah, and also claiming that OneWeb will probably go bankrupt because of Russia, which is really quite a claim, since we all know that OneWeb was going to go bankrupt because they were competing against Starlink. But yeah, look, OneWeb is presumably still looking around, but it doesn't have many options. Unless India has space, I think... SpaceX is the one that probably has capacity, but that may not feed into their general business role. Elon, of course, has been clowning around on Twitter as well, challenging Vladimir Putin to a duel. He can bring the bear. Yeah, no, don't challenge Putin to a duel. I mean, he is getting old, but he was KGB. And ExoMars, has pretty much officially suspended operations in collaboration with Russia. I mean, the rover is in Turin, right? The Rosalind Franklin rover is there. Europe will have to look at other options for getting it to Mars. Reasonably, it's going to take they're certainly not making it this year, probably not making it in the 2024 window. Maybe they can get there in the 2026 window. And for Russia's part, Dmitri's immediately said, if you're going to you're going to Mars without us, we'll go to Mars too. And I don't doubt that Russia has the technical expertise to be able to build a lander that could go to Mars. I don't see the funding or support happening, although maybe it might happen. I don't know. Anyway, that I think is my deep space update. It's been a bit all over the place. Oh, also I have to thank Skylab Bricks, who sent a Lego set of the Skylab space station. So this is not an official Lego set, but it uses actual Lego bricks, which are collated via Bricklink and all these other sites. I'm looking forward to build that because, well, I'm a nerd and, I got the Lego back here. So yes, thanks for tuning in. I'm Scott Manley. Fly safe.